Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, BeefLoaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends, Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas, as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order at 3 p.m. or later, and you get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but at their normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carry-out or delivery needs, or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlatta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is also powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid, and that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest is just, unfortunately, me.
Who cares?
Figured I'd come out tonight, talk a little White Sox with you. I got some things on my mind, some things that we just haven't gotten to yet in the 108 podcast. And we're at the point in the season now, I'm reticent to do a lot of analysis before we get to 25% into the year. It's just, a month plus, a month and a half basically into the season is kind of where I need to be before I can start saying, like, I'm seeing some things, I'm starting to understand some things. I'm a big fan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter, and he talks about the NFLization of baseball, where people are hanging on kind of real short-term results, and baseball is kind of this longer thing, this 6-month thing, 162 game thing. And so trying to make sense of what's going on in baseball, it takes, at least for me, it takes me a little longer. So we're basically at the quarter pole. The White Sox finished up a series with Cleveland, in which they played great. I mean, they beat them 3 out of 4. Real stinker on Sunday on Mother's Day, unfortunately. But wanted to get into some of the players that we've been looking over. And, well, let's get to a drink first. Little Yumper says, salud. Thanks, Yump. Appreciate you. If anyone has questions or comments or whatever, feel free to hit that super chat, and we'll mix those in tonight. But to me, like the hottest name that's been out there, and it's a confluence of events because this guy, it's partially his terrific performance. It's also partially the guy who he shares playing time with has been an abject failure, and that's Corey Lee. And for all intents and purposes, Corey Lee has been the White Sox best hitter through these first 25% of games. He's got a WRC plus of 128. That's 28% above league average. 78 plate appearances. He's hitting 284 average, 321 on base, 486 slugging. That is a far cry from last year's Corey Lee. Anyone who stuck with the White Sox through the end of the season, Corey Lee was horrible. I mean, when watching Corey Lee hit last year and then watching him hit this year, it's like you wouldn't even recognize him. Last year, in 70 plate appearances down the stretch, he had a negative WRC plus, negative 27. 0.77 batting average, 143 on base, 138 slugging. Now, he was coming off an injury, and a lot of people pointed to, oh, well, the guy, he's coming off an injury there. And usually that tends to be bullshit and then never surfaces itself as anything. But maybe in this instance, with regards to timing and with regards to, physical strength, he kind of just wasn't there. And maybe there is credence to that. Regardless, Corey Lee has been very good at both sides of the ball. Defensively, terrific arm. You can tell he's just more athletic and adept than Martin Maldonado is at this point. And so the comparison of the two of them next to each other is also making Corey Lee look even better. Not to take anything away from his performance that he's already put forth, but it is only at 25% into the season. It is only 78 plate appearances. There is a loud cry right now for Corey Lee to be the full-time starter. And I'm not necessarily against that. But one thing that, I want to just think through a little bit is, what is the optimal way to develop Corey Lee? What is the best plan for him? How much should he be playing that is the absolute best case for him? And I think that's the approach the White Sox should be taking. They should be looking at Corey Lee as like, look, we need to develop this guy as our starter for next year. Whatever is the best way to do that, that's the amount of time he should play. I don't know if a 70-30 split would be the best thing. You might be forcing him into situations where he's stretched. I don't know that he's ever played this many games in a season, like when we end up getting all the way kind of to the end. So you don't want to burn him out either. I think there is an approach here where, and the White Sox are starting to take it. If you look at kind of since Tommy Pham has come in here, he's started more games than Martin Maldonado, so he's becoming the primary catcher. And I don't think it's wise at this point. I know Martin's been horrible to just cut bait there. I think what you want to do here is let Lee get in the most positive situations for him, the best opportunities for him, and develop that way. I don't know if Corey Lee is a starter in this league, but it's looking at a minimum that like he can handle certain things. He's got a good throwing arm. He's probably at a minimum a part-time catcher or a backup catcher, and that's really a good find for the early start of this turnover of the roster. Reticent to call it a rebuild. We want to keep holding people accountable, so we're not going to use the term rebuild. I think it looks good so far. I can't wait to see the next 25% of the season, the next half of the season going through here, and just to see how he responds and if he keeps hitting and if the defense holds up. That sometimes catching is hard. It's a tough position. And guys wear down, guys get hurt. He got banged up pretty good yesterday's game against Cleveland. He didn't look that great behind the plate. But yeah, I just want to see how he lasts, and I don't want this to be like a foregone conclusion. Oh yeah, play this guy all the time. But you need to start looking at him as a real threat to be a starter here. Let's get to a drink. And my guy Chris McGowan says, this Thursday, John Garcia requests free Treasy. Treasy can have the night off. Me and MSS show on a Thursday night. That would be quite clutch. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate you. And I got my cousin Roseanne in the comments saying hi. Good to hear from you. Hope your shoulder's okay. Next up is my guy, My Sox Summer, has been touting this guy all season. We even made a graphic to bring in White Sox talk during the 108 podcast of Paul DeYoung. And MSS like Paul DeYoung. I think probably he started liking him a real lot when we went to do the mid show at Barstool in the new Barstool studios here in Chicago, and we were talking to Chuck Nasa, who had played a bunch of ball against Paul DeYoung, and said that in the summer leagues, actually in the fall leagues, that Paul DeYoung was hitting the ball as far as Pete Alonso, and so I think MSS really honed in on that and liked that. Regardless, when you're looking at a player like this, like Paul DeYoung, Chris Getz had to go out there and put pieces onto the roster for damn near nothing, right? There's a lot of these guys, part of the way MLB works now is you got your prospect haul, you got your development wheel, and then you go out into free agency, and free agency is really spreading quite a bit. You can either get at the very top of the market, and that rarely is a good hitter. Usually it's pitchers who are up there you can pay a lot of money for. Occasionally the Otanis and Juan Sotos get to free agency and they're going to get $500 million. But for the most part, just regular ass good hitters, it's tough to find them out there. And then you wait at the bottom of the pool, these guys that hardly don't make a lot of money. Like the old Kenny gets his guy in the Kenny Williams era when they shopped in these lower parts of the marketplace. They did pretty good. They would find guys. They would find the Carlos Quinton or that was in a trade, but they'd find Jermaine Dye or whatever. They were really good about fishing that bottom. Even Andrew Jones, when he came here as a part-time player, was damn good. The Rick Hahn era was horrendous with that. And so when you start looking at what Getz is doing for some of these spots, you got DeYoung for $1.75 million. That's what he got flexing for too. I kind of wonder if Jerry told him, look, you got $3.5 million to spend on these two spots. Go ahead and figure out what you're going to do here. But it was cheap. And at this point, I wouldn't call DeYoung a home run signing or anything like that. He's been just totally fine. Just like a nice, okay, playable kind of player. The defense is worse than I think we thought we were getting. Still probably better than we had at the position last year. And DeYoung is striking out a ton. He's striking out 37% of the time, which that's not tenable over a longer period of time. Like 37% strikeouts is like Joey Gallo, and only Joey Gallo can make that actually work. And there's no walks for DeYoung either. Almost 3.5%. That's horrendous. But he's stepped into 6 home runs so far, leads the team, and those home runs are super valuable. It's pushing his slugging percentage up to almost 500. And so when you take the ball into the ballpark like that, and you're even just a passable defender at shortstop, that's a 2-WAR season that he's on pace for Baseball Reference, and for Fangraphs WAR, F-WAR, he's on pace for 3 wins there. So if you're going to scrape the bottom of the barrel, And Chris Getz is going to have to do that. Most teams are going to have to do that, but teams, especially like the White Sox, look, there's not going to be just a lot of guys out there for you to just go grab and cheaply get. It's going to be the bottom, and then you're going to have to make trades or develop because even the top of the market sits either very high or the guys just aren't even available. I mean, if you look at, I had Nick Schaefer on the show last week, and we were talking about there's not even any bats really out there. Juan Soto will be out there. I mean, then you're looking at Pete Alonso, who might be cooked, and Gleyber Torres. Like those are your best bats you could possibly get in next year's free agency. A lot of teams just don't let those good bats get there. So you got to be fishing at the bottom here. And for me, this is a big proving point. Like a lot of people are play the young guys, play the young guys. I agree with that. You want to get the young guys some playing time. But if Getz can't figure out how to mine the older guys to plug into a spot when he needs them for cheap and get some value out of them, like he seems to be with Paul DeJong right now, seems to be working with Flexen and Pham. If you're getting more of those guys and less Maldonados, you got a good approach. And that's something the White Sox need to build on. And that's something Rick Hahn was horrible at. And if Chris Getz could be different than him in any way, shape, or form, for me, that's the first way I would like him to be different. He'd be different in the way where he can acquire talent at the bottom of the market like this. Now, I don't know that Paul DeJong ends up hitting those 2-3 WAR paces. But with a guy who's a veteran like this on a one-year deal, you don't give a fuck about the expected statistics. You banked the good shit that you got. All you care about is banking whatever you can bank out of these guys. Yeah, for your guys that you control for a long term, yeah, the expected stats are more important because you're like, well, we're fluky lucky here, but we need them to be good kind of going forward. With the young, if the young just shows up, gets you a 1.5 WAR season here, and is fine and can hold the spot down until Colson Montgomery's ready, beautiful. The money is absolutely fucking well spent. And so these are the types of things I still monitor, even though everyone's like, well, these guys aren't going to be on the team next year. I'm watching management. How do they create a team on these short-term deals? Because there's going to be a lot of these going forward. And the Robbie Grossman shit where they flip guys, there's going to be a lot of that shit going forward. So this is kind of like, I think, the approach going forward for a White Sox team at a minimum until there's a change in ownership. Next up for me is a guy who has been really doing it in the bullpen, and I kind of don't believe in him. I absolutely can't believe him, and that's Jordan Leisure. He's been a mystery to me. As of today, Jordan Leisure is the White Sox most effective reliever. That's a 2.20 ERA. He's got a 3.07 FIP to back it up. So it's not like this is, phony baloney. He's been very effective. 16 in the third innings, but he's not doing it like the back end fireball pitcher you think of. Especially in this modern era. He only has 11 strikeouts to 6 walks. That's not even a 2-to-1 ratio. That's not even 1K per inning, which is kind of like a given for a lot of these types of relievers. So he's doing this a lot more with just weak contact, with just throwing his fastball up in the zone and no one really being able to time it up. I'll put up the graph of his heat map from Baseball Savant. And you can see his chase rate and whiff rates and K percentages are all low. They're all very poor. But when you look at barrel percentage or hard hit and that type of stuff, no one's really squaring him up. So the life on the fastball is kind of what he's living on. He's throwing almost 60% fastballs at this point in the season. So I don't know if there is a level of he doesn't trust his slider enough or his curveball, or he just realizes that, look, this fastball is effective enough. I'll just take the outs. I don't need to strike everyone out. I'm not exactly sure. But, I mean, he's taking the ball. He got 2 quick saves. And not, it's not that I'm worried about him when he's out there or anything. I think he'll get outs. It just has been the least impressive looking, like, fireball or bullpen guy that I can remember in a while. It's interesting to see this approach. And I don't know if it's just like he's benefiting from the fact of this and like we're going to start realizing that the secondary just ain't good enough to be a big strikeout pitcher. I don't know. I mean, it is interesting, to just kind of look at a guy have that much success that early and he's just not really striking anyone out. But he's limiting hard contact, and that's the way they would do it in the old days, man. The closers, they weren't big strikeout machines. They just get you out, get you pop one up and hit a ground ball. And next thing you know, you're out of the goddamn inning, and Bobby Thigpen's got his 57th save or whatever the fuck. So I'm going to keep an eye on him just to kind of see how this goes, because it's only 16 innings so far for Jordan Leisure, and as impressive as he's been, I want to see if that strikeout stuff starts coming, or if teams start figuring him out there. It's just a very weird statistical breakdown, and it's a weird, like, when I watch him come in, to me he's not overpowering or he's not especially impressive, other than he just gets outs, which is fine. I guess we'll just deal with that. I will take the guy who just gets outs. He doesn't. I guess he doesn't have to be that fantastic. Next up is my play cousin, Brian Ramos. Treasy and I are very excited when someone with the same surname as us was getting called up, and it was a little unexpected. Ramos got called up from Double-A. We thought seemingly just because he's on the 40 man, and he showed up and he hit right the fuck away. I mean, and not only did he hit right away, here's a difference. Like, we were talking about it amongst ourselves. Tyler Saladino came up and hit right away, but it didn't look like this looks to me. Like, to me, it looks like Brian Ramos has good recognition of the strike zone. He's got a very low K rate so far for this era. You know, it's only about 30 plate appearances, but he's got a 9.4% K rate. He looks totally capable at third. Well, not necessarily looking like a stud there. He looks like he understands. He's got a high baseball IQ. And he's a smart base runner too. Like, just watching him in games, like, he was taking the extra base when it was there for him, like, and with no hesitation, just sort of a kind of like a young kid who's only 22 with a great understanding of how to play baseball already. And, like, that's so foreign to us as White Sox fans, because we feel like these prospects rush through and they don't always have the highest IQ. I mean, with the exception of, to me, Luis Robert on defense. To me, that man always knows where he's supposed to be, and like that shows a high IQ, baseball IQ. But a lot of these guys, it hadn't seemed like that until Ramos. Ramos does look like that. Now, the batting average and everything has sunk a little bit. So, you know, some of that's just BABIP luck. You know, he still looks like he's working good at the plate. But there's a decision coming soon, and Danny Mendick is going on a rehab assignment. And so it's possible that the White Sox will make a decision to bring Danny Mendick up here and then send Ramos back down to Birmingham and Double-A to, quote-unquote, continue his development. My personal preference there would be that the White Sox leave Ramos at third for as long as Ramos looks like he's a major league player. And I would just keep playing him every day. I'd bring Mendick back up, and I would let Mendick, because Mendick has played short, he's played third, he's played second, he can handle all those positions. And I would honestly send Braden Shoemake down, because to me, Braden Shoemake at this point, he just doesn't look like a major league player. He doesn't seem helpful enough in basically any capacity other than he runs pretty well. The plate appearances have been ugly. He's struggled defensively at a variety of positions. Like, I just don't see his utility with this group for now. And obviously there'll be more decisions to be made as Luis Robert comes back in a couple weeks. And then Yohan Moncada behind that. But in the short term, I would give Ramos some more run here and just see if he can start tapping into the power. That's kind of the main thing that, like, it would really buoy the offensive profile if Ramos started tapping into the power that we know he has. I mean, you know, you've seen it in the minors, but then also a lot of the prospect wonks are, you know, this is 25 home run power at peak. And, you know, we get it. He's getting his feet wet, and we haven't really seen – he had the almost home run in Tampa. But other than that, we haven't really seen him get to the power. So I hope that they make the decision to keep Ramos on the roster and not, not kind of send him away when there's an opportunity to. I understand in the interest of development, they may think, hey, he had a good run here. Let's not overexpose him right now. Let's let him go back down and work. I understand that take, but for me personally, I would like to see him stay here because I think he belongs. And I think he's part of the best lineup you can put out there. He's part of your best nine. So I would like to see that out there. I'd like to see that sort of thing rewarded. And I always like when these guys, even if they don't play a lot when they have come up, I always like to see them get paid major league dollar instead of that minor league dollar. It's a stark difference between league minimum, MLB, which is quite a bit of money, and then what they're making in the minors. So I always think that's kind of a nice reward for them. Next up is something I would call the Tommy Pham effect. Tommy Pham showed up. Ken WO and I were talking about on this very show about a month ago that they should just go out and sign Tommy Pham. He's out there. This team needs an outfielder. You know, and there was no condition of where he could play because Luis was hurt or wherever he could play any spot. You put him in left. You can even sit Andrew Benintendi down. Tommy Pham's showing up. He's got a 125 WRC plus. That's 293 batting average, 339 on base, 448 slugging. He's filled in admirably in center field, which is like way more than his 36-year-old bones should be requested to play on a daily basis. But you know what? He's tough. He goes out there and plays it. He's got this no-nonsense attitude, and I'm not going to say that doesn't have an effect on the team. You know, everyone operates differently. You work for a company or you're a friend group or whatever. Some people need a kick in the ass, and some people really don't. They work very differently than that. So maybe there's a couple people in that locker room where Tommy Pham's presence helps from that perspective. But I think really where his showing up helps is something that we don't talk a lot about, because we're always talking about psyche and everything, but from the perspective of just like adding one more fucking good player. Like, if you've been on a team and they add another good player, doesn't have to be the best player, just another good player, it raises everyone's a level of play. It adds a comfortability there that, like, if there's less pressure on you to make that play or get that big hit, because that guy can also help. And for me, like, watching this is why I'm not just throw all the young players out there. No. Put some major league players out there. When the young guys are out there, I want them to be playing on a team that at least has functional major leaguers playing around them. And so the Tommy Phams of the world and the Paul DeYoungs, as we were talking about earlier, they're important to all of this, to the development piece here. I don't think you want to just throw every young player out there and let them drown in an environment where, you know, there's no one there to pick them up. You don't want that. You want some of these guys. You want some of these vets around there to pick them up and help them out. And, you know, Tommy Pham is, in general, he's a smart player. He did get caught in stealing in Tampa. That was kind of a boneheaded play. But for the most part, he doesn't really make dumb plays. He's pretty sharp in all those spots. You know, the other guys have learned from that too. So, the effect of adding an extra good player, I think is always important. On any team or whatever you're part of, one more good person is usually always helpful. So I think that's what the real Tommy Pham effect is. It's not him going in the locker room and slapping people or his tenaciousness. It might be helping one or two people, but him being just a good player kind of helps the whole group. Last person I want to touch on, and this is not a positive note so far, and that's Mike Soroka. I was a big fan of Mike Soroka being brought into the fold. He was part of the Aaron Bummer trade. I thought great. I loved Mike Soroka when he was good. So that's like 2018, 2019 era when he was basically an ace for Atlanta. But he did the ace thing in a different way. He wasn't a big strikeout guy. It was more about control. It was more about, guys hitting your pitch and pounding the ball into the ground. So far this season, Mike Soroka has been pretty brutal. You saw his start on Sunday, giving up the long ball. He's got 24 strikeouts and 24 walks so far. So a 1-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, which is pretty terrible. 43 and 2/3 innings. His ERA and his FIP are both above 6. And when you're a control pitcher, man, if your game is just a little bit off, you can get hit around, especially in the type of league it is now, where you have bigger, stronger hitters, you got smaller ballparks, and the most efficient way to score is hitting home runs. And that's kind of been happening. Just looking in at Soroka a little more, he's starting to up his slider usage, which is good. That seems to be his best pitch. He's been a little unlucky. I was looking at the slugging percentage on his best pitch, 512, but the expected slug, only 398. So he's getting a little unlucky in that spot. He should ditch his changeup completely. It's getting absolutely clobbered. 708 slugging on his changeup. He may throw that pitch right in the trash. He's getting ground balls, but the problem is he's just leaving that sinker in the middle of the plate a lot. And so my thought with Soroka is like, what do you do with a guy like this who you have 9 starts into the season, and we're a quarter of the way in right now, and he has one quality start. And a quality start is a minimum 6 innings and 3 runs or less. He has just one of those. That's a single one. What are you doing? I see a lot of people just like, hey, Nick Nastrini can come up here and do this. Jonathan Cannon can bring his ass up here and do this. And that is probably true. I mean, they didn't look great, but yeah, could they just fill up a spot? Sure. But I hate to, this early in the season, just toss like a healthy starter when you still got 120 games to get through. And with Soroka, he's, as bad as he's been, he hasn't been blow up the bullpen bad. He's only had one start where he didn't pitch at least into the 5th inning. So he's not giving you that inning and a third where you got to go whole bullpen game. He's at least standing up and giving you, four and a third innings, 5 1/3 innings, even if it's not huge quality, and he's not burning the fuck out of your bullpen. You don't want to just like toss guys when you're at risk of not getting all these starts. We know Crochet is a guy who they've got to manage very carefully. We don't know what we're going to really get from SP5. That guy is constantly hurt, and the fact that they even brought him back in was kind of a weird thing. Chris Flexen and Eric Fetty might not be here long. So I think at this point with Soroka, I would request he throw like 60% sliders, get rid of that fucking changeup. And I would run him out there for the next 7 to 8 starts, at least till we're closer to midseason, and just see what he has. It's been an abject failure, but that's going to happen when you're going to get a lot of low-cost pitchers in here. Some of these are going to just not work. It's just absolutely going to happen that one worked. Flexen looks like it's working. Fetty is definitely working. Soroka so far not working so much, but I wouldn't be ready to toss him out yet. I would bide my time because I don't want to leave some of these younger guys too exposed. I do want to see more Nick Nastrini, and I do want to see the gorgeous flowing locks of a Jonathan Cannon. But let's just give this a little more time, in my personal opinion. So that's all I've got. Those are my talking points for tonight. I talked your ear off enough. Remember, we ain't trying to be right on this show. We're just trying to understand, and that's why I'm trying to understand some of these things that are going on with the White Sox. So I appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. Next week's guest, I don't have a guest lined up yet, but I told Teresi a guest idea that I have, and he was absolutely fucking thrilled with it. So I'm gonna try to book that guest for next week, if not the week after. We're probably gonna have a couple of. We're gonna have, definitely June 3rd. I will not do the au jus. That's Bonita's graduating from 8th grade, so we've got that kind of going on. So, and I'm debating. June 17th is my birthday. I have a birthday idea. We'll see if we'll be able to execute. Before I go, let's get a couple of these drinks. Stephen Barrow, cheers, beef. Solo beef's the best beef. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. And then Jared says, great episode and points, beef. Thanks. Oh, thank you, Jared. Appreciate you. That's very good. Thanks again to Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all the 108 fans up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button. Comments, and of course, those drinks and tips. Really appreciate those on the solo show to keep the whistle wet. We'll see you guys at the ballpark. We'll definitely see you Thursday night